The for each is another fixed iterative repetition in that it iterates through the items in a collection. Now, we've only seen two collections so far, and those have been controls that contain collections. We had image list and list boxes. Rarely would we probably iterate through the images in an image list, but much more common the items in a list box. In a couple weeks, we'll look at arrays as a data structure, which is also a collection, and then lists, or what we call generic lists, which can be of any type. And other data structures include dictionaries, queues, and stacks, and we could use the for each loop to iterate through the items of those different types of collections. So our code might be something like for each item in lst_test.items. So again, the items of the list box is the collection, not the list box itself. And we might do something with each item. And then the next statement simply advances to the next item in that item's collection. We can specify a data type for each XYZ as string in my array. We want to do something. Or we could specify the data type as a string data type before the array. So in the third example here, dim XYZ is string, and then for each XYZ in my array. So those are two ways of writing the same thing. Let's take a look at an example. In this example, I've created an application that's a list box on the left with a bunch of numbers in it. And we can add or remove items to that list box using these first couple buttons and the text box. And then there's a get sum button that will use a for each loop to go through and figure out what the sum of all those numbers is. In this case, it's 226. And then finally, I have another button here that again uses a for each loop and doubles each item in that list and posts the item into a second list over here on the right-hand side. So if we look at the code for the get sum button, I have an integer variable called sum, and I'm using for each item in lst_values.items. Between the for each and the next is the code I want to process, and I'm simply going to take the item, which is a string value, convert it to integer, and add it to my sum. And the next simply goes to the next item in that list. And then my message box, I'm showing the sum of all the items using an interpolated string. For the double values button, I'm going to clear the items in the LST output list box. That's this one on the right. And then for each item in lst_values.items, I'm going to take the item, convert it to a string, multiply it by 2, and then convert that to an integer, and then add it to lst_output.items. And the result of that is the doubling of each item from the left to the right. If you just jumped into this video, you can see all the videos from the Programming Practicum playlist by clicking on the image in the lower right. And if you'd like to be alerted to future videos I create, you can click my picture in the top right to subscribe to the channel.